Welcome to another edition of the magazine. Today we're going to be taking a trip down memory lane, remembering Barbero's restaurants. Barbero's is one of the first family restaurants in the greater New Bedford area to serve pizza. So welcome Tom and Nina, Tom Barbero and Nina Barbero Mach. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So how did it all begin?
That was my great-grandmother. She opened up a variety store, and then my grandmother took it over. And basically the restaurant came into because she had 3 sons, and she had them there, and she had to cook them meals because she was always working. And people would come in and they'd smell it, and they'd think, oh, smells great. You should start selling it. And she started selling it. Spaghetti and meatballs and then pizza, and that's how it all started, from a variety store to a restaurant.
And that was in New Bedford?
Yeah.
Corner of County and Linden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And then also at the same time as all that was happening, there was the bakery that brought in all the breads for the variety store.
Okay.
And he had this new thing called pizza, and they'd sell little squares of it for 10 cents each. And he said, just try this, Margaret. You'll see. It's going to sell. And they would just leave it out on the counter. I don't know if it had, it did have cheese, I think. And they just leave it out on the counter. And that started selling so well. And then the combination of what Tom had said and people liking all the smells and knowing that she was a good cook. So they ended up turning the variety store into a restaurant. But as you know, in the old days, people from the neighborhood would just come in and they'd say, put that on my bill, put that on my bill. And then when they get paid, they would come at the end of the week and pretty much pay for what they had gotten during the week. So they start the restaurant, and one of the first people says, put that on my bill, Margaret. She goes, oh, no bills. She said, everybody pays cash for this.
She was quite a businesswoman.
Yeah,
she
very
had
smart.
the restaurant, the variety store, and she also owned like 4 tenement houses.
Yeah.
And she would go around herself and collect all the rents. And she was a businesswoman right from day one.
When people weren't businesswomen back then. This was in the 50s. So she did very well. But like Tom said, it was because her mom was good at that. And so they ended up passing that down to her. So it was kind of nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great businesswoman story, especially for our community.
Yeah.
So how did you expand into Fairhaven, Dartmouth, and eventually Cape Cod?
Well, I think my uncle, Bob, and my father both wanted to take over a restaurant. So my grandparents got together and they decided to buy the place in Fairhaven.
Okay.
And it was new. So my father went to that one and my uncle stayed in New Bedford.
Yep.
In County of Linden. And so that's how we ended up in Fairhaven anyway. From my grandparents. Was their idea.
It was a converted house. So upstairs there was an apartment that was fairly big, and Tom's family lived there for a while. Yep. So he had the back. He was saying earlier how he had the miniature golf course as his backyard. That was so he could play there and everything. So that's a good backyard.
It's a great backyard.
And you didn't have to help mow the lawn either because there was no. I don't think we had any grass anywhere.
I remember my brother and I were 9 and 10 years old, or even 8 or 9, and my father used to yell out the window on a Friday or Saturday night, Tom, Mike, come on in. And we'd have to go in and do dishes and whatever he needed us to do. So that's why I started working there.
Right from the get-go.
Well, we joked because I said, that's why you had kids, just so we could work. So they started us. I didn't work in the restaurant for a while, but they started me out on the golf course and I could work in the summers. But I think I was only like 10 or 12. So hopefully there's nobody listening that on labor laws.
My Uncle Bob and her father, Joe, they all built it.
The golf course, So that was kind of nice, And my grandfather, they all did it. And my dad was a mathematician, so I came across the plans and I put them up on the Remember in Barbero site on Facebook. But it was just a sketch, and they knew where all the 18 holes were going to be, and then they added the batting cages later.
Yeah, tell us about that. The mini golf batting cages. It's quite an addition to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I think it made it more of a family kind of place, like it was a place people would go, high school students would go after games and things, but it also made it that kind of a place that it was, you could go bring your family and then go out and play at the miniature golf course. And then when we added the batting cages, it was nice. But so that was we were both born in 59. So that was right around the same time. It was built in 61. So Barbero started late 50s. And the one in Fairhaven.
The one in Fairhaven was 59.
Yeah. So same year we were born, the restaurant was born too. Yeah. And we were talking about how that because he lived upstairs, he and his brother and sister would just like, and I remember sleeping over there, and we just go running through the restaurant at night, like in our pajamas,
all connected.
while there were customers there. So it was kind of, it was fun for us. It was something different.
Well, you talked about being young and starting it, but when you're in a family business,
That's meant to be, yes, yeah. And we got paid 50 cents an hour out at the golf course, and I was thinking about it, and I loved it there because I could read while it was slow. And my grandmother would come out. She goes, "I'm not paying you to read. You need to go sweep the holes 16 and 17 because it had a big willow tree over it. And the DeRoche's house was right in back. Yep, so it was a big willow tree. So it always needed that. And I'm thinking, for 50 cents an hour, this is really a lot of work. But we did get free food out of that.
Any more than that.
No, you didn't. We got our food for free, so that was good.
So what made you decide to go into Dartmouth?
That was my uncle.
Yeah, Uncle Bob bought an A&W that was there.
Okay.
And that was already established. He had like the car hops on roller skates and things like that.
Yeah.
And then he was asked to do the pizza at Lincoln Park. So he did that for, I think, 8 years. And then after he'd close at night, he would go underneath the roller coaster and pick up change that had fallen out of people's pockets. He has bags of it. Are you joking? You never really heard that?
No,
you know that it's true, though.
I believe it.
He had the little bank bags we used to have from National Bank of Fairhaven. He had those filled with the coins, and if it was before 1965, they were the full silver coins. So he has bags and I don't know if he still has it, but bags and bags of those. So yeah, that was a little added bonus for.
What a great idea!
Yeah, I know. It made sense.
I'm sure he found quite a bit.
He did, yes. He probably found things other than that too. Anything else that had fallen out of pockets, but at least the coin. Yeah, he used to do that at night. So that was why he went to Dartmouth. So that way, Uncle Ray had his own place in Fairhaven, and Uncle Bob had that place in Dartmouth. Okay. And then it eventually left as a A&W, and he turned it just into a regular Barbero's restaurant. Yeah.
And what's the connection to Cape Cod?
That was her parents.
Yeah, so my dad was always involved in education, and he would always help at the restaurants while he was going to school. Mm-hmm. But one summer, he and my mom actually had a place just for a summer, I believe, in Marion, right on Route 6 on a corner. I think it was a laundromat after that. And they did that for the summer with the help of Johnny Hoyle, our dad's cousin. And then one year they went to Dennisport, I believe, and they did a summer kind of thing there. And then that way my dad could still do his school teaching and still do part of the Barbero stuff. So that was nice. Yeah. Nice. So we had those. Oh, and also in New Bedford on Union Street.
We had one in New Bedford on Union Street right next to,
Jimmy Connor's Pub.
Jimmy Connor's Pub.
Okay.
And that was there for like 3 years maybe.
Yeah, early 70s.
But he found himself too split up to run both places.
Yeah, so that's a lot of work running one restaurant. Never mind, two.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work. Yeah. So Barbero's was known for its connection to our community. So what were some of the ways that Barbero's was connected to the local community?
Other than sponsoring teams, little league teams,
yeah, that was a big thing. The Barbero's won a lot of awards. They had a really great sports team there.
Yeah, my father was never interested, but he was big into the Lions Club too in Fairhaven. Yeah.
Both our dads and our Uncle Bob too, so they all did it. The other thing too, I think the proximity to the schools we were right on I think it became a community kind of place in that way that Tom said, because that's always good to give back. But also where the high school was, where the middle school was, people came after all the games. It was just always hopping.
Yeah. Before they opened the rest of 195, all the cars that were going to the Cape had to come down Adams Street and right past the restaurant. And I remember people, when I was a kid, being lined up outside the door.
Oh, wow.
Because it was the first restaurant you got to when you came into Fairhaven off the highway. So that was a boomtown then.
That's great.
Yeah.
So tell us more about your fathers and how they started all this business. You talked a little bit about how they were inspired by their mother. Which would be your grandmother.
Yeah, our grandmother. Good. Yep, and our grandfather too was involved. He did. Yeah, he did other jobs, but I think he was involved in the restaurant too.
Yeah.
So, what happened? Like, why did they start giving the business over to you?
Well, my father and her dad opened up a Dartmouth indoor tennis courts.
Okay.
So after I was in my teens, and they decided to do that. So he spent all his time there because he liked tennis more than he liked making pizza.
It's a little easier. More
I
fun.
would say so, yeah.
And so you had that for quite a long time. She used to run the place.
Yeah, so 1979 to 97, so 18 years we had that.
Yeah.
And then that's when Tom came into play at Barbero's in Fairhaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and along with my brother Michael and my sister Gina also worked there.
Okay.
So she became a teacher. So
Okay. All right.
So we were all there.
So
And family, I can't tell you how many aunts and uncles and cousins right up until we closed. I think your sister was there when we closed.
She might have been, yeah.
And it just was a lot of family. And then what happened was we had you'd hire someone in the family, and then their brother would come in or their sister, and we'd have all the kids used to go through the restaurant and work. Yeah. So that was really nice. It was good to have the extra help.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about the Gouveia family and the Daniels, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but there were a lot that had several people that just kept coming, the Pease family. And so it was just nice because you would just get to know the different people. And then sometimes they'd move on. But Chuck Martin, I think, was our main person for so long. He was the manager for a long, long time. Yeah. And I think his son worked there for a little bit. Yes, Josh. Yeah, so it was just that kind of place that was just very family oriented and tried to keep it that way. And I think we did a good job. Well, they did a good job. We tried to continue.
You definitely did. And I remember going there several times as a family because my cousin Kevin Kobza worked there, who's now a lieutenant. So I remember going there all the time and enjoying the great food.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the food that people remember.
Well, pizza was the main thing, and we sold a lot of pizza.
And people usually say the linguiça pizza. They always say, "Oh, we shouldn't." And they liked the subs.
That was one of the favorites was linguiça pizza. That was the big seller.
Yeah. I bet that was huge. I remember it was huge. It was huge.
Yeah.
Yep, that always went. I mean, other things too. I think that was the biggest for the takeout. And then, when people were eating there, it was a little bit of everything. We used to have, I remember now just thinking, the Coast Guard ship used to come in and order subs to go. Or they'd order, spaghetti and meatballs. So they'd have quarts and quarts. And when we used to take the orders, we just, you're doing it hundreds of times in a day. And so they ordered this huge thing. And I remember it had to have at least 20 or 30 subs, all kinds of food. I said, would that be for here or to go? They're like, no, that's to go. But you just say it's so used to answering the same things over and over.
There were other places like Our Lady's Haven used to order every Sunday night. They'd order big orders. Yeah.
There were a lot.
There were quite a few. Yeah.
And I was just having you ask us to do this was nice because it brought back a lot of good memories for us. But I was telling Tom, it took me years before I could throw an envelope out because Grandma Barbero would always make us save the back of our envelope so that we could write the pizza orders on it. There was a certain spot that was written, and we would always write. And honestly, the first few times I threw it out, I felt like, oh my gosh, she's going to come down or she's going to strike me because I'm throwing out an envelope.
She didn't waste anything.
She didn't waste anything because she was born in that time that you couldn't. So.
And she also was there, until the year before she passed away, she worked. And it was funny because she would come in around 11 o'clock and she'd work through the lunch hour and run around like crazy in her 80s. And but if she had to go somewhere else, if she had to go to the mall, she'd have to take a nitro pill just to go to the mall. But she could run around the restaurant for 3 or 4 hours a day.
That was she was used to, the stress of the mall.
So I was lucky enough to grow up with my grandmother working there. And a lot of her sisters worked there too, my aunts,
And then your grandmother on the other side, Amy Small. Yeah. So, and then we had Lil was a waitress for years and years. Yeah. So it was just, and people would come in and see the same waitresses, and that was a comforting thing too. So
Barbero's is known for the best pizza in town. What do you think made it so special?
Probably because we were the first ones here.
Okay.
Yeah. That could be.
Up the street, I believe me and Ed's had a place at one time.
In Fairhaven?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know that.
Well,
I do like.
Okay.
It's
we were the first ones. My father opened it really in 1959, And it was just the first place that offered sub sandwiches and pizzas and Italian dinners around. So it was quite busy when I was young. It was extremely busy.
It was great it was good. We got to meet, and I grew up in Dartmouth, but I got to know so many Fairhaven people because all the families and everything and working there. So that was nice.
So back in the 60s, having a restaurant, the first one that you come into Fairhaven to find, and a mini golf course and batting cages.
Yeah.
So what was the idea behind the mini golf course and the batting cages coming into play with the restaurant?
I really don't know that.
I think that they saw, like, I don't know if it was my dad or your dad, but they saw it somewhere and they thought it would be a good idea. I think when they were on vacation, they saw it, and my dad, as I said, loved that stuff. So he's drawing things up and he said, we can make this work. So it was kind of nice, but it was a good tie-in because it made it more, we had the little thing in back too, like where we worked in Barbero for the golf course, we had those like pinball machines
in the back.
I forgot about that. Okay, right. So we had that as well. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was going to say too, like before that, pizza was only in bars. Like it was something that they'd put a lot of salt on so that you drink more. So there were a few restaurants, more bars in New Bedford that had the pizza, like a real bar pizza. And I remember one was Palisades, and there were a few others that had that. So when we started it was a little different than that because it was more like a restaurant and a family type thing, more than just, to get you to drink more.
And as far as sub sandwiches goes, I think we sold millions of meatballs. Meatball subs. Yeah. I still make them once in a while and freeze a batch, and my son makes them now. He's passed them around.
Yes, we love that. We make a big batch when we make it. We're Italian, so we do that anyways.
That's great.
Yeah, a few years, it's probably been like 10 or 15 years now, but we came across the recipes and then we'd take turns. So Tom and his partner would come from Lincoln. I'd try making something, and then we'd have a nice family dinner, and then vice versa. They'd say, "Okay, we're going to try the meatballs," and so we do that. So it was a good excuse for us to get together. So that's been nice. So it's kind of
we didn't mention Grandpa Joe much, but I remember every Sunday, my grandfather would stay home and he would cook. One weekend we had polenta and chicken and rabbit. And the following weekend, we had risotto with homemade sausage. And he was the one that cooked because my grandmother went to church.
Okay.
And they built a dining room on their house because all the families, we all got together every Sunday afternoon.
It was a long time, too. We stayed.
No. They don't. It is a shame because that is nice. That is a nice memory, too.
And you end up doing things you wouldn't do if you're just like rushing in or it's a holiday. You end up playing games or, the kids just run around. And it was a lot of work for them, I'm sure, but it was kind of nice. It was nice for us. And I think all the cousins are still close to this day. So that's nice. Yeah, and that was the foundation for it, probably.
Yeah. You brought up a lot of great childhood memories for me, remembering the smells of Barberos and just going in there and the closeness of everyone, from such a family restaurant and being a family business. Yeah. But unfortunately, all good things come to an end.
They do.
So tell us about that.
Well, I decided I had kind of had it. I'd been there since I was, 8 years old, and I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to work in a hospital. I didn't know what I was going to do in a hospital, but I knew that's where I wanted to head.
Okay.
And I did. And so I worked in Providence for 15 years as a pharmacy technician.
Okay.
And I worked at Women and Infants Hospital, which is a great hospital. My granddaughter was born there. Yeah. And so I did that for 15 or 16 years, and I loved it. Yeah. A lot different from making pizzas to making medication.
Yeah, a lot different.
Yeah, so that's how that ended up.
Okay. And what did you choose for a path?
Oh gosh, I've had a lot of paths. But I ended up working at the tennis club for 18 years. Okay. And then since then, so probably for over 20 years, I set up displays at stores and theaters, and I love that. And it's a lot of fun. And I also do because the tennis courts are closed in the summer, I got to do things on the side. So I've worked with florists for 40 years. And ironically, now we were all friends, even though the Raffas and the Riccardis were our competitors,
Yeah.
we all were friends. Everybody was friends. So, and we're still friends. So I help out at Parafas and I make their pizza shells. So
Oh, wow.
sometimes I'm just covered in flour from head to toe and my hands are there and I just feel like I'm channeling Grandma Barbero. So it's kind of a nice
great.
thing. Yeah. So I kind of stayed with that part of it. And also the Barberos, the year after you closed, became a tea room for 1 year.
Yeah,
we
that's
did
right.
that for a while. So it was like
Becky ran
antiques.
that.
Becky ran that.
Okay.
And so we did desserts and things like that. And
Oh, she
and
worked
the
there.
tea.
You worked
Yeah, I
there,
worked there
yeah.
too. Yeah, it was only for a year, but it was
get
that we
rid of
had it. I know. They asked me to come back. Really, they did. But it was just up. It was my cup of tea, even though I wasn't a tea drinker. But it was just up my alley. We had antiques, and then I loved doing desserts, and then we had little sandwiches. But it was fun because a lot of people would come in and they were like, "Oh, we remember Barberos," and we still actually had the pictures of the grapes painted up on the walls. So it was we called it the Wisteria Tea Rooms because it kind of looked like wisteria. So we called it that. And we had like little girls' birthday parties and dress up. And we were able to make the restaurant into that for a little while. So that was very nice. Yeah. So that was good. It lived on a little bit longer before it became a pharmacy, Rite Aid, Walgreens.
So that's what people would want to know. Some viewers probably like, what is it now? Well, it's not there.
No,
Yeah.
It's not there.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I lived on top of the restaurant practically my whole life. So I was in 4th grade we moved, and then I was back around 14, and I lived there all through the time I had the restaurant. I moved from the top of the restaurant to Providence.
Yeah. When you left, you really left. But but it was fun because you could, like I said, we'd play around and there'd be customers there. But they honestly, I don't think they minded kids running through. And it was just kind of a nice atmosphere to be in. Yeah.
It was a nice family atmosphere.
It was.
At one point, he opened up the bar.
Okay.
And he was successful at that for a long time, but then it became a little too much and it became more of a bar room. So we closed the bar
It was the Racket
and
Lounge.
reopened. We put more booths and tables in instead. And that's how I preferred running it. I didn't want to run a bar.
There was a lot less trouble, and it wasn't till the wee hours of the morning or anything like that. The emphasis was more on the food and eating in rather than drinking. So that it was a lot easier on the waitresses too, when it wasn't having to push through to get their drink orders while it was a pretty. It was a busy bar.
It was, yeah.
The Racket Lounge he called it because he loved his tennis.
So some of the people that are watching will remember this and remember Barberos and bring back a lot of great memories. But for our newer viewers, it was in the spot where the current Rite Aid Walgreens is.
Exactly. Yep. Right in there, right next to the Honeydew Donuts and and where the bank is.
Yep.
The bank's still there, I guess. Yeah.
The bank's still
Yep.
there.
Some things stayed the same, I
That
guess.
stays the same. That's a big building. But thank you both so much for coming on the show and for reminiscing. What would you like our viewers to remember about Barberos?
What would you like? Well, I just think that it was a nice place for people to meet, all neighborhood people, no, I guess I hope they remember it for the good pizza and subs we made, most of all.
That's good. What would you like?
The same pretty much. I mean, now I actually live in Fairhaven, so many times when they find out I'm a Barbero, they're like, "Oh, we loved it there," and it just warms my heart because every time it reminds me of Uncle, our whole family.
I'm still waiting for ML Barron to do something. He has a lot of pictures of restaurants and other things.
He does, and
I'm waiting for him to put Barberos up. So ML.
The Bedford Guide actually has done a couple. Every time they do something, friends will send it to me, but they do that original with a lot of. I'd given them a lot of pictures off the Remembering Barberos site,
Yeah.
and then new people will get in touch, and then the membership will go up on the page and everything too. So it's kind of nice. I mean, we really don't post anything because it's not like
on Facebook.
Yeah, it's on Facebook, but I mean, we don't have specials or anything because we're not open anymore. So there's not a lot to post, but it's kind of nice when new people say that, that I remember that and I worked there, and we had to have hundreds of people that had worked there over the years. So I would guess.
One of the, on Remembering Barberos, there's an old menu
Okay.
and pizzas were like $1.50. Meatball subs were $1.25, or even 95 cents and $1.25 for a big one. The prices were just amazing.
Right. Can't get those prices today.
Not anymore. Although I do remember, I remember when you had the anniversary.
Oh, yes.
And you forgot to put a restriction on it.
Yeah.
So if people were ordering 10, 20 pizzas at a time, right? As if I remember.
6 lasagnas.
Oh my God! Because we went back to the old prices and we didn't know to do that.
That was a big hit.
It was really
I bet it
big.
was.
They must have been freezing those pizzas for months.
Knowing that I was 16 because I was in driving school, and I had to leave because we all had to work day and night.
Yeah.
I had to leave from 5 to 7 every night because I was going every day to driving school. But that was during that time, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
We learned our lesson on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice. It brings back good memories of us for our families, and I'm glad that it brings back good memories for people that had enjoyed it, like you and your family.
It's
So
nice to know that.
it is nice to know that we had a little bit of remembrance there and some good memories for people. So that's
A lot of
nice.
great memories.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm surprised you didn't work there. You?
I know, I worked at Shaw's.
We would have hired you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, thank you for coming on the show and sharing some great memories, and I'm sure it's generated a lot of other memories from our viewers. And thanks for being such a historic icon in the town of Fairhaven.
Thank you. Well,
And
thank
other
you.
communities.
I was going to, okay, we're historic icons now. Thank you for asking us. It was nice to relive all this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.